that. Welcome to the public forum of the Ordinary Council meeting of the Muswell Shire Council, being held in the Memorial Hall, Denman, Overley Street, Denman, Tuesday, 28th May. Declare the meeting open at 4:12 p.m. for the purpose of the public forum. Please note the forum will be live streamed and will be made available on Council's website. Any declarations of interest on my left? Councillor Ward, Councillor Mahajan.
Yes, Mr. Mayor, I have one. The matter listed on page number 10, property DA20249, Childcare Center, 38 Maitland Street. The related property owned by me and my wife.
Thank you, Councillor Mahajan. Just to clarify, Councillor Ward, I should have clarified, only in relation to this item, 911, the public forum. Councillor Barry, Councillor Morris, Councillor Hartley.
Yes. 9.1.1, the Childcare Centre, 38 Maitland Street. Significant non-procuring. One of the neighbours to the property who has submitted a submission is a close work colleague that I work alongside on a daily basis. So.
Okay, Councillor Bowden. Okay, we will move forward with public participation. I'll ask those councillors declaring interest to leave the room. When we do, Mr. Martins, we'll give you, we've got a bit of time, we'll give you a few minutes and in the public forum, give you 3 minutes, and then if you can just hang on the line, if you will, to so you can answer any questions councillors might have when you're ready.
Okay, thank you very much. Look, I'll probably just give a very high-level overview. We did receive the review document prepared by GHD, but look, I'll just make 3 or 4 very short points. The childcare centre is proposed to operate under what's called preemptive closure. That is that if there's a risk of an extreme weather event or a flood occurring, that this childcare centre would actually close prior to that event occurring. And there are a whole range of resources available for that, such as bomb warnings, flash flood warnings, SES warnings, weather out warnings, hazards near us warnings, and so on. All the sorts of things that we see as people on a day-to-day basis and look at on our phones. And the childcare manager and staff at the childcare facility will obviously be trained in a whole range of risk management measures. And this would just be another risk management measure that would be added to the portfolio of things like fire, terror, domestic violence, incidents such as health risks and so on. So I don't see this as in terms of a childcare centre being located in an area that's subject to flooding as anything out of the ordinary. It's obviously approved in other locations in the state. It's been through court cases where similar situations have been approved. And the proviso, of course, is that there is a management plan in place to manage these sorts of risks. So that's sort of just a general overarching point. The second point that I'd make is that there is more than ample time to evacuate or close the site. The site is faced possibly from 2 sources of flooding. One is the Hunter River. That's obviously many days warning. And then there's Muswell Creek, which is the local creek. And even in respect of that, clouds just don't appear out of nowhere. There is radar, there are weather forecasts, there are flash flooding forecasts. All those things happen the day before. We all know what the day is likely to be in the coming 24 hours because we can read our weather apps. And I don't see any difference with this situation. The third point is that if all of those warnings were ignored, there's a flood warning system that's been constructed on the Muswell Creek, very close to the site. And if you ignore all of that and you don't look outside the window and you don't look at your weather apps and staff don't do anything in respect of managing the flood risk, that flood warning system still provides 4 hours worth of evacuation time. And so to put that into perspective, it's a 5 to 10 minute walk to take the kids up the road to land, which is above the 1 in a million year PMF flood. So with 4 hours warning time, that's more than ample time to be able to leave the site. And to put some context around that, we all have experienced fire alarms, fire drills, and so on. In those situations, and it would be the same here for the childcare centre, a fire alarm goes off. Those staff need to be trained to take those children outside to safe ground to a muster point in minutes. So I don't see why flooding is any different to a very severe emergency such as fire. So the last comment I'll make is just in relation to the GHD review. I'll just make two very short comments about that. One is I don't think that review was fair in terms of assessing the preemptive closure in a detailed and an appropriate way. It sort of just dismissed that, whereas in fact that's actually quite a common response for other developments like schools and childcare centres. And secondly, it did not say that should be refused in the sense that the risk was unacceptable. It asked for further information to be provided. So there's a letter that's, I think, attached to the Council's ordinary meeting report that we prepared a few weeks ago, 9th of July. I encourage everyone to have a look at that. There's an overarching response which covers the issues that I just raised or discussed, and then there is a detailed response which just gives you a lot more sort of point-by-point commentary in respect of individual matters raised by GHD. So in summary, I've had a good look at this. We've had a look at evacuation. We've had a look at warnings. I don't see that this risk that flooding is unacceptable is supportable. I think it's very manageable, and it would be a shame that this development was not approved on the basis of flood risk management when those sorts of factors are easily manageable by the competent and trained staff that would be operating a facility like this.
Thanks, Mr. Martin. If you can hang there, any questions from any councillors?
Mr. Martin, we weren't relying on the one report from GHD alone. In fact, there were three sources: the council, ourselves, GHD, and the SES, all of whom said that this is a potentially dangerous site for flooding. And looking at the bigger picture, if that were to be approved, that would open up the possibility for other developments that could also then be approved that could be, again, putting more facilities in danger. So to rely on just the GHD report alone is probably fraught with danger. But given that we've got three bodies that say this is potentially dangerous, what do you say to us saying, well, we can ignore all of that, or you could ignore all of that to let this go ahead?
Well, I'm not saying ignore what's been said by others. I'm saying take it on board and consider it together with the information that we've provided. So we are engineers who specialise in this type of work, and we have looked at the risks and the probabilities of those risks coinciding with people being on the site. And I just think the probabilities are extremely low. I mean, I haven't said the other, of course, backup facility is that all the floor levels above the PMF. So there's no chance that anyone is going to drown in this type of facility. I just can't see that happening. And as I said, this would be setting a precedent. There are a whole range of childcare centres that have been approved in flood liable land, but it's a case-by-case basis. So to your point, would this set a precedent? I don't think it would. You would need to look at each individual site on its merits. Like, for example, if this were a facility that was just two residential developments, you might say, well, they don't have a management plan in place. They don't have trained staff. They don't have overriding legislative obligations to manage children in a safe and appropriate way. So that's one of the things that distinguishes an operating facility like this from many other types of developments, is that you have this management structure. Like childcare centres they're so heavily regulated. The ones I've looked at, they've got, advanced SMS, text messaging systems. They're in contact daily with parents and carers. They have registered lists of people who can collect and can't collect the children and so on. So they have a whole range of information that they can access quickly and make decisions on very quickly. I mean, of all the types of developments, these are the sorts that are actually highly managed, I think, and best suited to manage those types of risks.
Thanks. Any further questions from any councillors?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, thank you. Daniel, I guess the conclusions drawn from the consultant, GHD, state that they believe that the management plan an evacuation plan is not consistent with the LEP, which is our, I guess, our mandated planning policy. So I'm sort of struggling to understand how I can go against the LEP and the information that's been provided. Again, as was previously stated, that the SES have also have provided input and not in my interpretation in support of the application. And the GHD report actually goes, I think, over and above what Council's original report stated in terms of the timing, the 4-hour time window, being possibly lower than that in flash flooding scenarios. And are we leaving it to the competence of humans to save lives? That's my biggest concern, because I think that is fraught with danger.
Look, I'll just go back to we are relying on these childcare operators to safely manage the lives of our young ones. And I've got 4 kids that have been through the system pretty well across the types of issues that might happen, management problems that do occur. But at the end of the day, there are regulations that control the training and the employment of these types of people, and we already entrust them to manage them through very extreme risks like fire risks and so on. I don't see how this is any different. And I just can't see, with the greatest respect, Graham, that these risks have been minimised and managed in a range of ways, apart from an emergency management being set above the highest flood possible from either one of those flooding sources. But the reality is that 4 hours that GHD talks about, and even if it was a bit less, the centre will not be open. And, you know, we all know that these cloudbursts don't just arrive out of thin air. You can't get a 1 in 20 year flood event out of blue sky without anybody raising an alarm. I just don't see that as a reality. So I think that the risk to our young ones at a facility like this is not a risk that is not managed or manageable in a way that I think is already proposed.
Thanks, Mr. Martins. Any further questions from councillors?
Mr. Mayor, one supplementary, if that's okay.
Yeah.
So if the management plan that you've spoke of, is that enforceable as a part of the conditions of consent, and is that enforceable if there's a transfer of ownership?
Well, in the first part of your question, yes, it's enforceable. And if there's like the sort of things that you would do, as you would do for fire management, is you would have annual drills. So it's common to have annual drills for this type of emergency management as well. All of those things are enforceable, and there should be record keeping of those sorts of drills and training, and all that stuff is enforceable and can be lodged as annual reports to the council. I think the second question is maybe one for a planning, but I imagine that if the consent goes with the land and the new operator takes over, and that consent remains operational, then whatever is required under the consent carries with it to the new owner.
Thank you. Thanks, Mr. Martins. No further questions, councillors. I have one. Mr. Martins, you sent some correspondence to me the other day, and I forwarded that to councillors. It's the correspondence effectively you've just spoken to. Can I just take you to, and you'd probably be well aware of it, one of the concerns I have in the GHD report, it goes on to tell us that the technical memorandum has been prepared for GHD, by GHD for Muswell Council. It is not prepared and is not represented to be a deliverable suitable for reliance by any person for any purpose. What's your interpretation of that?
So could you read the first part of that again? Your voice
The
cracked. a little bit.
memorandum's been prepared by GHD for Muswell Shire Council. It is not prepared as and is not represented to be a deliverable suitable for reliance by any person for any purpose. What's your view of that? You raised that in your correspondence.
Yes.
What's your view of that?
Yeah, I mean, look, I read their report as one saying, give us some more information. And that's how I responded to that. They weren't making a hard and fast recommendation at all. They were saying, look, if all things fail and you don't shut down and you are operating and there is an out of blue sky random rainfall event and you've got your 4 hours, justify that you can get out. And so the additional information that we provided shows you the evacuation route to a muster point, which is another childcare centre. And there are a couple of routes that we showed you could take, and you'd walk the kids up and you'd be out of the risk zone in 10 minutes. Bearing in mind that, you know, flooding, it doesn't just come out of nowhere in the sense that the water doesn't rise so rapidly you can't walk on dry land. So yeah, we felt like they were just saying, look, provide some more information.
Okay, thanks, Mr. Martins. And I'll probably ask this later as well because I want to clearly understand it. But just one final question. It says further in the GHD report that GHD has not independently verified or checked for the purpose of this memorandum. GHD does not accept liability in connection with such verified information, including errors and omissions. Errors and omissions in the memorandum which were caused by errors or omissions in that information. So they're pretty, am I right in thinking that because it says GHD has not independently verified or checked for the purpose of this memorandum? What does that mean if you say you referred to that again in your correspondence? What do you say that means when that's what GHD tell us, that they haven't independently verified or checked any information?
Yeah, so what we did our work on the basis of the actual flood models, so we could interrogate those and look at timings and that sort of stuff. GHD did not ask us for any of the models or any other information. They did their work, if you like, slightly at arm's length from a distance, and they inferred or estimated or guessed various parameters based on information that they had that was in the public domain. So yeah, they didn't ask us for any information.
Mr. Martins, further later. No more questions from councillors. Thank you for your time, Mr. Martins. And again, you'll be able to live stream the decision later on.
Thank you very much, everyone.
If any further questions, I'll now declare the forum closed at 4:30 p.m. Thank you.